Hello viewers, welcome to my program, Candid Talk from Northeast. Today, I have with me award-winning journalist and author, Sangeeta Barooah Pisharoty. Sangeeta, a Delhi-based journalist who is currently the National Affairs Editor and Bureau Chief of The Wire, was born in Golaghat, Assam. She was also a deputy editor, The Hindu, a national newspaper. She received Ramnath Goenka Excellence in Journalism Awards in 2017 for feature writing. She also won Parag Kumar Das Journalism Award in 2023. She has authored 2 books, Assam, The Accord, The Discord, and The Assamese, A Portrait of a Community. Both the books have received rave reviews and responses from the readers. Welcome, Sangeeta. Thank you so much for your kind consent to join the conversation as a guest of Candid Talk from Northeast. So
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So my first question, you have recently penned your second book, The Assamese, A Portrait of a Community, a book through which you explored diversified culture, identities, and history of Assamese community. What prompted you to write it? Search for Assamese identity as a linguistic identity or a cultural identity?
See, first, there has to be a disclaimer that the offer to write this book came from my publisher, LF India, LF Book. Because it's also part of a series that they have started, something very interesting, which is like, a kind of a portrait of various communities that make India. Prior to that, they published one book, a portrait on the Bengali community and one on the Anglo-Indians. So when they wanted to publish a similar portrait on the Assamese community and approached me, I was very happy with the idea, because we don't have a single book which we can, offer to people and say, this is what my community is, at least a kind of an idea and an overview. So the idea, I really like the idea, but the challenge in front of me was that I have a full-time job. I'm first and foremost a journalist, and, I do ground reporting and things like that. But then I thought that if we need to go to that extra length to be able to write books on our vision, because we have lots of books in our own language, in our vernacular language, regional language, rich literature, but we don't tend to see books published by national publishers in English. And that's also a reason sometimes I feel that Northeast is not understood or misunderstood or less understood. So then I felt that why not I should take it up. Okay. So as I went on, thinking about how to approach the book, of course, I have grown up in within the community. So my easiest thing to do was to also search for my identity. Who am I as an Assamese? Who am I as an Assamese woman, a daughter, a child, having grown up in Assam? So I got into that. Okay, so I explored in my book a bit about my identity also, and in the process getting into the larger picture of the wider identity. So coming to what you said, you asked me about whether it's the linguistic or the cultural identity.
Yes.
I realized that the cultural identity for me, I realize, is a lot more than the linguistic identity, because linguistic identity, of course, it played a very important role in the formation of the Assamese identity. During the British era, there was a certain use for it. But I have now realized that post-independent India, it's very important also to recognize the fact that Assam is also a multilingual state. And many people may not speak Assamese as the first language, but they do identify themselves as Assamese culturally,
Yeah,
So then
very true.
and we are all very smaller, we are all small communities, So we have to
Yes.
hold each other's hand, hold that identity together, that collective identity. So for me, I felt that the cultural identity is something very important to me. Also, even you look at, see, the work of the music, say, or Bhupen
Yes.
Hazarika, Rabha, or Jyoti Prasad, cultural identity is a lot more important. I've actually realized that's the nerve center. So I have held that up in my book.
Yeah. Okay. So would you please share with us about the planning of the book? So how did you plan to complete such an elaborate piece of work? It's so huge and you have put so much of things into it.
See, the biggest challenge, was the COVID era.
Okay.
No sooner did I start writing, thinking of writing the book or the research on the book, COVID happened. It was such a huge problem. And I tell you, for a nonfiction writer, it was like if you can't travel, if you can't meet people, so it's very difficult. So I had to wait. And so after the first round of COVID, I started traveling. Yeah, and under what restrictions one had to travel, and I did all of that. And I must thank a lot of people in Assam, who agreed to, if I could not access certain book, they would mail it to me, just send it to me in Delhi or my home address, in Assam. And then on telephonically, people agreed to get interviewed, be interviewed by me. Then there was Assam Guwahati University Library, which is a repository of, all our, it's a huge repository of Assamese culture and the community and the identity. So many books are there. So there, the librarian was kind enough to allow me entry into it,
Yeah,
and during the COVID time, yeah, very nice. So it gave me a lot of, I'm so thankful to a lot of people, for having made this book a possibility. Everybody, I think whoever I approached felt that we do need a book like that in English. That's how I see it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So based on your research work, do you think that Assamese community is at the crossroads of an evolving cultural identity shaped through assimilation and a religious identity constructed by right-wing ideology as a subnationality in the imagined Hindu Rashtra? What, according to you, will influence the choice of Assamese people to move on?
Okay. See, cultural identities, of course, it's a huge, I see that, just the other day, I was in Guwahati, we were, it was a women's conference and basically on peace, how to discuss Manipur and how to bring peace. And there were representatives from various northeastern states. So, there I pointed them out that, they look at because it's the women who carry the identity on our sleeves. We were like, look at you, you are at the moment, how are you dressed up? Okay. So it's like the whole identity is like, the culture is what one women carry. So then I pointed out that the multiple things that with so much of ease that we actually now wear each other's clothes and weaves. So that talks about the whole cultural assimilation and the willingness to join hands with each other and and go forward. So I feel that the Assamese community also, when you look at it, both tribal and non-tribal, they now want to, it's this whole assimilation that I see in terms of food, in terms of weaves, even if one is wearing a mekhala chadar, but your motives and all would be same, some tribal motive, a Raba motive or a missing motive or a Boro motive. Okay. So it's like that. I know so many Assamese women wearing dokona, which is a Boro outfit. Okay. I have so many of my Assam Boro friends who wear mekhala chadar. Okay. So, and easily straddle from one language to the other. So obviously language has become kind of a matter of, connecting with each other, not more than that. Okay. It has this, but culture, particularly food. I always talk about khar, Like khar, we always call ourselves khar khua Ahomia. It's like basic identity of you. But khar is as much important for a Boro or a Rava or a Missing as a non-tribal Assamese, I would say. So an Assamese community, let's not forget, is a unique community, because I don't see any other community in the Indian map which has a tribal and a non-tribal part. Okay, and no non-tribal, actually, after my research in the book, I had written, like say no non-tribal in Assam non-tribal Assamese can say that they are different from the tribal Assamese, because the influence, the assimilation is so much, I mean, we talk about, I always give an example, an easy example, which is like, apart from khar and all, if you look at Assamese jewelry, we have this big thing about Ronga Moni, Where did
you have written a lot about
the
jewelry. Yeah, you have dedicated a chapter in your book.
Right.
On this,
right.
Yeah.
It's just to show that we are so much, I mean, like given, so much of give and take has happened. Even in language, lot of these words, we have picked from each other's, So, and nobody can say that, this is like a very, only my words, we use so many of these words which you don't even know that it has tribal influence, So I feel that the whole cultural identity is now an assertion of a cultural unity and all that, which a lot of people may like to say Bor or Hom, is actually, I feel that their assertion has begun, but there is a danger to it, because as you mentioned about the whole right-wing thing coming, the Hindutva and the way it is infiltrating into the Assamese community, there is a fear of this whole Assamese identity turning into a Hindu identity. Let's not forget, what the right-wing RSS forces and all, what they have done to various other identities, like Gujarati Ashmita. If you look at Gujarati Ashmita, which is also a very solid subnationalist feeling, regional feeling. But now what we see is like, it's a very Hindu Ashmita. Where are the Gujarati Muslims?
Yes.
Okay, it's a very large chunk of Muslims. There's a Gujarati Muslim community. Like, what are those Bohra communities and all? These are like local, like our Assamese Muslims, They're very ethnically, ethnically Assamese, but by religion, they're Muslims. Okay. So then what we see, like, say, even Marathi Manush, is now a very Hindu Manush. Okay. So my worry is that the Assamese community must, should not turn, the identity should not turn into a very Hindu identity, because our identity is a very, many of us are Hindus, many of us are Muslims, many of us are Christians, many of us are animists, and so many religions are there. But what brings us together is this proud identity of being Assamese together.
Yes. Okay. So among Assamese cuisine, festival, music, dance, literature, other crafts and all, which carry the most prominent signature of the Assamese community, according to you?
Very difficult question, because I find its resonance everywhere. Our literature, you look at our, the history of short story. I think we're one of the oldest. Okay.
Yes.
So, and look at our dance, the kind of dances that we have. Look at our,
and these are living, crafts, we have our living traditions, the Satriya.
These are living traditions. So it's very difficult to say. Yeah. But since I have stayed away from Assam for a long period, and whenever I crave, I crave for my state, I think it through food. So I would say our Assamese food is something which is quite a differentiator, because otherwise also now I see that there are a lot of people who want to taste Assamese food, say in Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, and these bigger cities. They after they just love it, and they say it is so different, even if it is an Eastern cuisine. It is so different from Bengali food, And so so I would say that it's the Assamese food that is a huge marker of the identity, and particularly the khar in it. I mean, Manipuris also have khar, which they call uti, but khar is such a kind of an unifier of all tribal and non-tribal kitchens. And the other thing is also the whole taste of it. I always feel that Assamese khar has contributed hugely to the Indian cuisine, because it is the fifth taste. Okay, it is not neither khata nor mitha. It's what the Japanese call umami. So I always feel that our khar is the fifth taste. It's our umami, and that's why we have contributed so much single-handedly. This dish has contributed to the greatness of the Great Indian Kitchen.
And almost all the communities of the entire northeastern region, they have this particular dish of having khar. Not only the Assamese community, it's not restricted to Assamese community, Assamese speaking community,
and the bamboo shoots. And the bamboo shoots also. I always think that bamboo shoots is also a differentiator. But khar particularly I pick up because it's not easy to make khar. It's not easy,
Yeah,
bamboo shoots may be an evolved taste. Okay, it needs perhaps a more acquired taste. Okay, but to make khar is something, to maintain that balance. It's not easy.
It's quite difficult. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. And your book contains a lot of information on wide-ranging issues, and there are observations and documents. You have also added interviews. You interviewed so many people, and you completed a book with a daily engagement, and as a senior journalist based in New Delhi, too hectic. And you also travel widely in Assam and other northeastern states. Would you please share with our viewers about your fieldwork? How frequently did you visit Assam as part of your fieldwork, and what were the challenges? Once the COVID you mentioned. Yeah.
Yes, COVID was a huge challenge because, I mentioned in my introduction, there were some people whom I wanted to include in my interview section, because this interview I feel is very important to document, because Assamese is the only identity perhaps where central government had to form a high-level committee to decide who is an Assamese. It may sound bizarre to a lot of people, but this is like an official identity, But Assamese also think about their own identity, how they look at it is important. Then when I went around meeting people, then I realized that this identity is it's so different, from what we actually try to, what the government and the other, it's on paper, NRC also tried to decide who's an Assamese. But when you look at people like, say, I've spoken to a lot of people across religion and across, other things like, say, I've interviewed people like Victor Banerjee, because even in Calcutta, I've heard him saying, Ami Ashamed Chele. He would say this in Bengali, but he said, I am not Bengali, I am Assamese. So I got in touch with him to ask, why do you say this? Then he said that I may speak this language. I may be born in a Bengali Banerjee family, but look, I have grown up in that place. My heart beats for that place more than Bengal, So I am an Assamese, and he speaks the language, and he has acted in Assamese films. So those kind of things, So I brought in where people actually feel Assamese, so they may have a different surname or whatever, So I've introduced one Assam Guwahati University professor. He's a Tripathi, but married to a Assamese, and he talks Assamese, so he speaks in Assamese. So he was telling me, he said, I am no more a Tripathi, I am an Assamese, and that is, and he gave reason why he is an Assamese, So that makes you feel so good that the Assamese identity, which during the time of NRC and all, people looked at it as kind of a very, very restricted kind of thing, and but it actually has such a wide canvas. So, and coming to the field work and all, of course, I travel so the nook and cranny of it, going and meeting
I know that.
people.
Yes.
Yeah, so lot of, and so I have thanked this one driver, whose car I had, hired. And because you just can't, because there were no public transport at the time, very limited. So, and police would be stopping you if you cross district to district. So being a journalist helped at that time, because they would not usually stop a journalist. So, and you have to, so that really helped me. And plus, reading a lot of Assamese books. So I have referred to my references are mostly to Assamese books. There is also a vested interest in it, because I wanted to show also to people outside that we have books in our own language. We may not have books, though, as many books in English or in Hindi or a wider language, but we do have a huge number of books which are dealt with multiple issues, in our own language.
In our own language, yeah, that's true. And you also, have you adopted certain methodology, like prior to reading? Prior to go for field work.
Okay. See, there are two ways of
interview part is there.
There are two ways of going about it. One is very academic way of looking at it. And I felt that the academic way is, I'm not an academic. So A. B, if then academically, if I look at it, it can get a bit boring. I wanted people to engage with the book. So then I thought that the journalistic method of inquiry is actually the best. Okay. If you talk to people, somebody says something like that, and if you can refer it to a book, where I found something interesting in the book, or my own observation, then I felt that more and more people are going to engage with this book. Either they agree or disagree, but they will engage with the book. So that is how I treated the subject.
Okay. Yeah, very interesting. And your first book also, that was Assam, the Accord, the Discord, right? And it is also, it's a key documentation of a turbulent period of political history of Assam. Do you think identity aspiration of Assamese community has always been misunderstood as a sovereignistic assertion outside the state, or the community has failed to correctly articulate it?
No, I think, see, that is what I was trying to refer to, the reason behind in the second book of allowing people, giving people that space to define themselves, who is an Assamese, was actually what I saw during the NRC update process, and and also CAA, anti-CAB protests, because the way it was being, the protest, the reason for the protest in the rest of India was very different from what we saw in the Northeast, and particularly in Assam. So it can be looked at as a very chauvinistic kind of a thing, but I always feel that in India, we need to also look at the rights and the fear of the smaller communities. Entire Northeast is made up of so many smaller communities, and many of these communities can't even send an MLA or an MP to the parliament or their assembly. So but they, even if their number is very few, but they have their own language, they have their own culture, they have their own food, they have their own weaves,
religion,
own history, own literature, like oral literature. They have so much, own customs. So how do they protect themselves,
Yeah.
Assamese, of course, is now considered to be it's the largest community in the region, and followed by the Métis. You see what the Métis are doing now also. And it's the fear that, and also the politicians keep playing with this fear for too long. When they keep playing with this fear for too long, it becomes rancid. It becomes very, very toxic, So this toxicity is what I am scared of, But because there has to be some sort of thinking within the community too. Because if we are a small community, we should be also not wasting our time in a lot of these agitations and, buns, and this finally affects us. So what we need to do is, some people should be able to write books on to explain our point of view. Some should be able to promote our culture, our food, and we take on all of this, So it's almost like, if you really have to flower, if you really have to be recognized, if you really want to preserve yourself, your culture, you have to do that. So I feel that these are things one needs to do than becoming pawns at the hand of politicians, because politicians are coming here only for their own benefit, only
Yeah.
for the next election for the vote. So, and in the process, but the community is a larger identity. So we cannot make our entire communities or community across the region, kind of slave to a political party. I see that happening now within many communities, which is a very worrying thing for me.
Yes. Yeah. Particularly for those who are very small in numbers, Yes.
Correct. Yes.
So what is your opinion about perception towards India's Northeast by people outside the region? And do you think books and other documentation on Northeast revealing the history and culture still very few to understand the region for outside readers?
Yes, it is. It is still very few. I always mention this. It's very interesting now that I see, unlike our times, I'm talking about 25 years ago. Now, many things have changed. There are a lot of these, I see reporters coming and working for national media, both men and women. Whenever I meet my colleagues like that, I always tell them, you should just start writing books. We do need non-fictions or our histories, and it's time we tell our own stories, because our stories have been told by others, and we may not like it, we may not agree with it, but we need to tell our stories. My always standard line is also that if somebody within my own community or my region doesn't like my book, disagree with my book, it's welcome, because in the process we will have one more book then. Okay, so then our whole repertoire widens. So this is something I feel that it is only through books, it's only through ground reporting, good journalism, like what you do too. We have been doing it. So I just see that it is through only that. And also discussions like this in English, in a language and a wider audience, that people will get to understand our region. It's very important to understand our region. I see a difference, let me tell you. When in 2015 I joined the Wire, and my only condition was that I should be allowed to cover the region, but they didn't have much funds and all that. So I said, if I call, people are going to pick up, because they want to be covered. Their stories want to be told, they would write it. And it happened. And within a year, I saw Scroll hiring somebody to cover the Northeast. So, and now what we see is that a lot of people are actually talking about Northeast. This time you see a lot of people have opinions on Manipur and all that. It's only because so much is available in a language that more people understand, So it's something that what you are doing is also very important at this point, I would say.
Yeah, thank you, Sangeeta. Okay, please tell us about your journey as a journalist. How challenging and exciting it has been so far, and how challenging is to pursue two professions simultaneously. You are a journalist and also an author. How challenging is to pursue?
Oh, it's very difficult, It is very difficult, particularly because I also lead my team in the Wire.
Please also tell our viewers something about your journalistic career.
Okay. So the thing is that okay. So it's not, when I joined United News of India in the 90s, I was quite surprised that they told me that I was the first woman from the Northeast to be hired at their New Delhi headquarters. I was like, so we were in some way or the other, I had actually broken some glass ceiling, So, and of course, 2 years later, there was one journalist who was hired, a woman at that from Manipur. So, so I was quite surprised at that time. I said, really? Am I the first woman from the region? So this is crazy. And then now when I'm in the Wire, I always point this out to people, because I am the chief of bureau, and we in the New Delhi newsrooms, we hardly see any Northeastern people, holding such a position, and that too a woman. I don't think at this time, I don't know any other woman from the region who's like, leading one's team in a New Delhi newsroom, So, but we are breaking those glass ceilings, I would say. I'm so happy to say that. Okay. So, and the other thing is like, so that's why it becomes very hectic for me. This is also the election time, and we are forever running, rushing.
You were also the deputy editor of The Hindu.
I was, yes, and for about 13 years. So, and that was after I left UNI, where I worked for about 6 or 7 years, I think. But the thing is, I always tell myself that if I don't do an extra bit, and write also books and things like that, so then who else will? Because when we first came to Delhi 25 years ago, very few people, I used to go to meet Mamuni Roysam Goswami, Baido was at that time she used to head the SMS department, and we are very few people. Every Sunday she would ask us to come home, and we had the privilege of listening to her, hand-holding us, telling us, these are the things you all need to do, you all are privileged because you all are in Delhi, you are getting this job to do, that kind of thing she used to tell us. That's the reason I have dedicated the second book to her, She told me that this is what you need to know, I wish she was alive to hear this, So it's a very interesting thing. And she told me also, don't write only nice things about your community. Learn to question your community also, because that is how we will strengthen the community, will make it strong, So her writings were also like that,
Full of questions.
So I always think that we should be I should be doing both, writing books, non-fiction, and also doing journalism, because we don't have too many books. Somebody will have to write, So if I am getting an opportunity, I'm very lucky that way, that instead of me chasing publishers, it's the other way around. Publishers show interest. And also a lot of national New Delhi-based publishers, these large mainstream publishers, are also discovering Northeast, by the way. So I'm also at it. It's a very opportune time for people like us also, So we are lucky in a way. So I want to use that opportunity to be able to bring out some books. If somebody doesn't agree with, they think that, it could have been a better job, then somebody else should write those books, so that we have a lot more. And the other thing I feel is, lot of SMEs within the new generation SMEs, they hardly read in SMEs. So in the process, they don't know much about our own community. So it will finally dilute their identity, their sense of pride and everything, So if we don't have books at this point in English for them, they will never know what their mothers and fathers' communities were, So that's why you people are writing such good short stories. Okay, I just hope that they just get translated into English, So because there's a wider audience, even within the SMEs community, is also waiting to explore those,
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much, Sangeeta, for enlightening us by sharing story of your incredible journey as an author and a journalist. I am grateful for your time and look forward to have you again as a guest in coming days. Thank you, my viewers. I will come back with another guest soon. Till then, it's goodbye. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.